What's next for IT? In today's economy, technology touches every aspect of the day-to-day operations of business. There has never been more pressure on IT to deliver for our organizations. So what can we expect over the next decade? We need to think differently about how we approach our work to continue to thrive into the future. This requires all of us to be intentional in how we look at our role going forward. Smart IT is an approach to getting the important things done by transforming the way we think, work, and lead. And now, let's disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk the smart IT way. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. And today, I'm welcoming Jared to the show. Hey, good morning, Jared.
Good morning, William. How's it going?
It is going fantastic. Hanging out with another cool person in the realm of IT, so it's always a good time to sit back, relax, chat, and just talk about some interesting topics. So I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
So I think the last time I saw you in person, I think it was at some conference we were having here in Alston. I believe, can't remember which one. There's so many, but it was good just to catch up a little bit with you. And then for this session, I said, you know what? I want to talk about some IT operating models. So let me look through my LinkedIn network. I said, you know what? I know somebody who's been in that IT leadership role and got hands-on experience of interfacing with the business. So let me call up Jared and have a good conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, and it's amazing at how differently different organizations run their IT groups and the different levels that they're integrated. Even when you have identical businesses, that it's a totally different integration model, different road mapping and strategies. And so it can go 100 different directions.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about it. So like you said, two identical companies, same amount of revenue, but the way they use technology could be different. The way they think about how to use technology could be different. And then the CIO, CTO, that whole IT leadership team that they bring on board can be different. So has different flavors. So you may not recognize one IT group from company A versus company B. So that's a good thing, right? So small, large, tech, real estate, there's just a lot of variation out there. And so I'm always fascinated to see how you guys on that side of the world figure out, okay, what's my strategy? Okay, how many people do we hire? So let's start there. Like when you look at a company and you're thinking, okay, how does this company use tech? How do I support it? What do you start?
Yeah, I mean, and it's always changing, right? So historically, a lot of times, whenever I'm coming into an organization and I'm building a new team, and kind of laying out strategy, it's always been, bring in and build a very strong team internally of generalists, and then focus a little more on like your specialty projects, on outside vendors and partners and whatnot. But I mean, things have gotten to a pace now where the technology is changing so fast. You're purchasing fewer and fewer in-house hosted solutions, that you really are having to shift that model quite a bit. Because I mean, some companies would go, 15 years with the same ERP system and just kind of do the incremental upgrades. And then, now you may be swapping ERP systems every 5 years. And so it's just kind of shifting into that more agile model, so that you can more quickly adapt to market conditions and whatnot. It's always, you always have to go in and learn the business first and foremost, right? And what their appetite for risk is, what their appetite for investment is. I've worked at organizations where they basically say, look, these are the bare minimum things you have to do. Don't exceed this budget, period. And so it's all 100% efficiency focused. You're not trying to reinvent their business. You're not trying to make massive competitive advantage changes to the business as a whole, right? You're there to check the box, and that's the way they do it. And they, you need to um, address their appetite for risk there. And then you have some companies that are the polar opposite, and they come to you and they say, "What can we do? Right? What can you guys do to help us?" And those are the companies that I really enjoy working for and with, because you, especially in
Yeah,
today's world, right? I mean, every
yeah,
company should be a technology company, and you can create so many areas of efficiency for the business. So it's learning the business, address risk, budget, and the team, right? And go from there.
yeah. I like the fact that on the technology side, if we're thinking like ahead and just kind of observing what the marketplace looks like, maybe we got our buddy work for another company, they doing something crazy, and you're sitting in the bar just hanging out, and they saying, "Hey, we just did X, Y, Z with this new tech." And then that led to some operational efficiencies, and it changed the way we thought about maybe serving a customer. And all of a sudden, a light bulb goes off in your head like, that's interesting. Let me take a look at that. Let me do a little research, what my buddy's talking about. And all of a sudden, you're in your next IT steering committee meeting. And then, Jared, you get up there and say, by the way, that's going to be a good feeling.
Absolutely, and it's honestly pretty crazy how you can get up there and say, "Hey, I can create a 20% cost efficiency in this entire division, right? I can either increase revenues or save expenses, in the realm of tens of millions of dollars, and estimated cost is this, and we're not interested in that right now. Some
Yeah,
companies,
yeah.
right? And I mean, I get it, because a lot of people have been sold things in the past that didn't pan out, right? Projects that didn't deliver, and so it's definitely a challenge. But so many companies are still doing things, the way we were doing them 15, 20 years ago. Managed service providers. If you're a managed service provider and you're still
Yeah.
you haven't automated your ITSM platform and all of your ticket handling and like employee onboarding and offboarding and all of those things. I mean, you're a decade behind, because I was doing that a decade ago. And it's just crazy how many of them are still doing things the old school manual ticket for every single thing. Um, so it just depends on the business. And I, you know, I feel like as an IT advisor, my role is to, identify the risk, identify the opportunity, and present it to the business in the best way that I can, and allow them to make an informed decision without killing them with all of the technical jargon and technical detail and whatnot.
So you almost have to go in there and say, we can get maybe 5 to 10% efficiencies in Department A for an investment of $50,000, given about a 6 to 12 week period of time for a trial period. And after that, maybe we can deploy in 3 months. You almost have to be tight like that. Otherwise, you can get stuck into, hey, let me show you a demo. This is very cool. And then 9, 10 months later, it's like, Jared, what is this? What happened?
Well, and you've got to get the teams on board too, right? I mean, so if you're wanting to revamp your say accounts receivable process, right? Get the AR team on board with that, because you're affecting their jobs, you're affecting their day-to-day life. And if your AR manager or your director of accounting goes into that steering committee meeting with you and says, "Hey, we want this. This is fantastic. We've talked about it. You're gonna get a lot more leeway."
So maybe I know kind of the past, we used to do big tech announcements, a lot of conferences, both business people and tech people come through, kind of see what's out there. And it's kind of haphazard, right? Because maybe Microsoft's doing something huge, maybe Google doing something huge. But maybe the future operating model is you IT leaders are saying, I mean, obviously it should be done anyway, right? What's new out there every quarter that we've done a little research, we prepare for this session, and we're going to AR, we're going to AP, we're going to HR department, we're going to maybe the manufacturing floor, and just observing between interviews and just observing how they do their job. Is there anything that technology has brought forth that could enhance what you guys are doing? Have those conversations in the background and then bring that forward. It seems to be a little bit more forward thinking than waiting to be just kind of washed away by some executive that saw something and said, hey, let's jump on this.
Well, and that's, that's my personal preference is to be ahead of that curve. If you're not taking improvement ideas to your business leaders, then they're going to get ideas from, conferences and this, that, and the other. And you do want them to get those ideas and bring them to you, but I believe it should always be a partnership. And so many times when, that executive goes to the conference and sees this new whiz bang product, and then he starts making purchasing decisions and all that stuff without ever talking to IT. They go to IT and they say, here, we've just spent, $2 million on this, make it work. And they have no idea whether it integrates with any of our other systems. They don't know what the lead time looks like. They don't, they just haven't anticipated how it's going to impact everywhere else in the business. And I think, having worked at a company where we had an IT department with no business analysts to work with the different heads of department, it becomes a very painful environment. And then, the IT leadership just has to step up and fill that gap. But the IT group's got to understand the business, and then are working with the business to be able to effectively improve their quality of life.
And that brings up a very interesting point. So if you are short on business analysts, maybe change agents on the business side, and then IT defaults back to them. But IT trying to operate the infrastructure, right? So the cloud, these networking environment, the remote access, identity, governance, all these things on your plate. And by the way, Jared, when are you going to find this extra hour to do a business analysis of this workflow for this back office process? That could be a challenge. So how do you think about IT leaders, carving out that time if in fact, maybe they don't have those business counterparts already in place?
Yeah. It's really tough. And the default operating model, right? If IT leaderships, IT departments don't have initiatives to move forward with the business, then they're going to default to focusing on the IT operation, right? Improve what we can, make our IT processes more efficient, make the platforms more secure, make things more stable, those kinds of things, right? And then, in essence, it's back to the priorities of the business, right? If they don't want you spending your time on improvement and generating competitive advantage, then you shouldn't be spending your time on that, because it's that's costing them money. But at the same time, you kind of have this fiduciary responsibility to the business to at least stay abreast of what's going on in the market, and bringing those things. If the business leaders aren't seeing those things, then sometimes you do. And the time management piece is tough, right? In every job, in every area, you've got that juggle for time management. That's something that I've always kind of wrestled with in the past is how do I block off my time? For a while I went no meetings, or only have meetings one day of the week, and block off work time and this, that, and the other. And I've tried the method where it's kind of just almost playing whack-a-mole of addressing issues, but you get more integration with the other teams because you're not structuring your time so rigidly that they can't get time with you. And I think it's a personality. One woman that I used to work for, she was very strictly regimented with her time, very well organized, very detail oriented, and that worked beautifully for her, and it helped the entire team stay organized. Whereas whenever I tried to squeeze my personality into that strict of a regimen, it kind of didn't work as well for me.
Yeah. But that points out to another challenge, right? We're talking about the not enough time to go out and maybe think strategically and bring these innovations back. But even trying to clear your calendar by saying, Jared, man, your buddies are using this new AI optimizer on the calendar. It's taking out all these meetings, and you realize you need to stop, uh, investigate these AI tools, try them out, bring them on board, and then troubleshoot them. And by the way, that might take 12 weeks. And you're like, hold on, so I need 12-week investment to get this new tooling to help clear up time is a challenge.
Oh yeah. And so, one of the big points, you were talking about, they want you to think strategically. I've found in my experience that so many companies tell their IT leadership they want them to think strategically, they want them to be strategic, yet they expect them to be tactical, right? Whenever you get to the day-to-day operations, and it's a very different mindset. It's a very different way to spend your time, right? I mean, if you're strategic, you are out working with the business leaders, you're out working with heads of industry, you're out at conferences and learning the latest and greatest technologies that are out there, and you're not as hands-on. And so many business leaders, CIOs, CFOs, COOs, they want you to be in the office, be hands-on with everything that's going on. And even, I mean, I'm in between roles right now, and I'm interviewing with people, and we want somebody that's very strategic, but also has all these hands-on skills. And it's competition for your time, right? And so I think setting expectations with the business of, hey, what do you want me to spend my time doing? If you really want strategic behavior, strategic thought analysts, you want me to build out a very dialed in roadmap, then hey, I may need another headcount to handle these hands-on stuff, to handle the day-to-day operations, right? You add another manager into the group, or even a team lead or something like that to help the day-to-day functionality. So I think that's a really, really important point. And then also, as a business leader yourself, you've got to be able to make that decision of, hey, this technology looks really cool. This could be the deliverable.
Yeah.
This could be the impact, but is it worth 12 weeks to find out if it works or not?
Yeah. Well, it's not just an opportunity here, because right now, a lot of IT organizations, their operating model is a little bit obscure. So maybe if you're really, really advanced, got a lot of money, you do TOGAF or some type of other framework out there that really maps out all these business capabilities, serving the business mission to all these IT capabilities. Well, our IT teams can't go all formal, do TOGAF or something else like that. So they come up with their own models, but it may not be visual, that maybe a CFO walking by and say, hey, Jared, let me see what the operating model looks like. Because in theory, if you did, you could say, oh, this is how much IT department is expending. Here's the structure. Here's the resources. Here's our third party capabilities, and be able to map that and say, oh, if I want to get more innovation out of maybe a line of business, I'm going to need more technical capabilities. Let me go see what the current capacity is of my technology group. Right now, it's not like an obvious way for a business person to see that. They have to go back and forth with you. So give me a sales spreadsheet. Let me get a PowerPoint. And you try to say, we're just busy. And they're like, what does that mean, busy? You're running around. So strategic versus other people in our industry, maybe our baseline is say, they got 3 more times the staff that we do. So the thing you want to do that they're doing, there's a disconnect there, and they need to see this. Yeah, go ahead. You're about to say something? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, and I think that's one of the biggest differentiators in a good IT leader versus a poor IT leader, is that they can have that conversation with the business, and they can help the business understand what's going on, where we're spending our time, where we're spending our money, how we're delivering value to the business, versus, hey, we just make everything work, right? Because then that's the thing, is the absolute best IT team in the world, you would almost never know they exist, right? Because nothing breaks. Everything just works smoothly, seamlessly. You don't have any problems, hiccups. And so, you don't get that kind of hero status because you're not fixing things all the time, but it's because you're being proactive. And so I think that a lot of IT leaders who have come up through the traditional, they started their career at service desk, infrastructure, and gone the technology stack. So they're very engineer minded, which doesn't always work well with business leader minded. And so if you can't really deliver that message to the executive team or to your board, then your team's going to suffer.
Yeah, and then how do they see that? Because once again, that visualization component still seems to be lacking. Now, if if a line of business say, you know what, I need to get more output out of this widget or this machine, they know, okay, I need to add another $250,000 piece of equipment, then I can get more output. If they go and say, hey, I need 3 more initiatives require IT, they may not necessarily know what does that look like? Did Jared want 2 more analysts and 3 more engineers? And then he's asking for 3 managed service contracts. And then this retainer from this new cybersecurity firm. They're looking at all this stuff and they have no idea what this looked like. So it just looked like money request, money request, money request. And they can't see how things are connecting. So let's talk about leadership having to kind of tell the story, but also visualize what this means is, okay, we want to go do this investment and catch up with our competitors. Here's what the capability from the business standpoint looks like. And this is what we don't have from a technology standpoint that we have to do. And by the way, it could be 18 to 24 months to get there. Let's see what that roadmaps look like. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and the visualization piece is tough, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of integrated systems, and you're dealing with a lot of not only complex but sometimes just hard to understand concepts for non-technical people, and so visualization then becomes more and more challenging. You always end up with, on your first pass, something that's way too complex, right? I worked for a gentleman one time, and we were preparing slide decks for the board, and he would always say, I need more information but use fewer words. I need more information but use fewer words, right? And it's kind of the same thing. And back to your comment about storytelling, right? I went to a workshop in Chicago one time. It was the Sim National Conference, and they had a woman there speaking about storytelling. And I think that in today's world, that storytelling is one of the most critical skills you can have, because then you don't have to have this amazing visualization, right? I mean, you can do a very simple roadmap and then tell the story of, hey, this is where we're at, and this is where we want to be, and this is why. And then there's less emphasis on that and more buy-in from your leadership around actually building that. That's the more challenging piece, because you do have to go in and work with all your business leaders and say, hey, what is your ideal work situation? How do we make things better? And you take kind of their desires and requests, but you also have to keep those in the context of the business and what the business's priorities are, because a lot of times those things are not aligned, and then kind of just step back. Really, what I like doing is I like a 3-year roadmap for a modern IT, any business right now is really reaching, right? Because things are just moving so quickly. I worked with a gentleman one time that he said anything past 12 months is trash. I don't know that that I'm, but and it's great to say, hey, this is where I want to be in 3 years. Let's walk this back, and how do we get there? But then revisit that, right? But that long-term point in time where you want to get helps you make all those decisions up to that point. And I think that's one area that folks struggle a lot, is that analysis paralysis. You want a new ITSM or IT service management platform. You sit there and you you look at 10 different ones and they all look like they check your boxes. So how do I know which one to go? It's not, you don't always want to go with the cheapest one or whatnot. Well, what are the goals of the business and which ones help you address those goals or take a step towards that goal or whatnot? And that just kind of helps you make better decisions all along.
And it also brings up the whole part of the operating model is how do you onboard new technology? How do you interface with third party? Who manages that process? So you just mentioned 10 solutions. 10 solutions mean, Jared, you got 10 emails from 10 salespeople from 10 vendors, all wanting to take you out for lunch.
Oh yeah. And
yeah.
No is the most important word, right? No. You've got to learn, I think, as a successful IT leader to say no, and or to say maybe later or whatnot. In my last role, it got so bad. I mean, I just stopped answering my desk phone. I never answered my desk phone ever, and because it was all sales calls, and it's I just not interested. But I found that if you can find a VAR with a good sales team that you trust, obviously they're going to present you 3 or 4 different solutions and kind of try to guide you towards one or the other. And I'm okay with that VAR process as long as we make sure to do our own due diligence, right? Do our own high level market research and find out, hey, is this is everything they're telling us legitimate? Is this really the best solution for our business? And then also, there are groups like SIM, like we're a member of in Austin, where you can talk to your peers and find out, hey, how do you like the solution? Have you worked with that solution? There are organizations where you can, pay a membership and they're vendor agnostic, and it's basically a community opportunity to ask what others are doing and discuss different solutions and whatnot. So I think there are a lot of different options, but I feel like you've got to whittle it down pretty quickly, because if you can't do a POC with 10 products, right?
And that kind of starting to get back to a CIO's overall strategy is I can only grow my head counts a certain pace over the years. Maybe I can leverage maybe some resources from other parts of the company who can help deal with this due diligence. Or like you said, maybe I go out this VAR, maybe I put more in the VAR to say, I value your time. What you can do for me is X, Y, and Z to make this easier. You go and look at 50 options. You whittle it down. Maybe you guys do some integration work in a lab environment for me. I'm going to give you my requirements. And obviously, as we build this relationship and you come back and actually do good work for us, then we'll keep using you. But let's talk about, offloading some of this to the third party who are incentivized to do more, provide you more value, to say, okay, I took maybe 40, 50 hours off of Jared and his team's time to help evaluate the tech, and then maybe help with some of the key data points you need for your business justification, and then maybe some ways to help operationalize it and even finance it, right? So let's talk about this. Let's offloading some more of this to the third parties and coming and really make this trusted partner really mean actually trusted.
Yeah, and that's the VAR relationship to me is one of the most critical in the IT purchasing ecosystem, right? Because I've worked with all the big VARs, and I don't think, in my opinion, it's not specific to the company. It's more specific to your sales team. And you work with salespeople that just want their commission check, and then you work with salespeople that want the long-term relationship. And I will follow sometimes a good salesperson or a good account manager from vendor to vendor.
Interesting,
right?
Yes.
Because the technology may be similar enough where even if they're, if you go from like SHI to CDW or vice versa, it's the person that I have the trust in, that they're going to present to me what they feel is the best opportunity for my business or the best option for my business. And one of the best ways that a VAR can build trust is say, hey, we're not the best solution for your business.
Oh, yeah.
We don't align. And that's fantastic because I'll take that and I'll move on. And then, but the next time I'm going to come back to them first. And it's, so I think you hit the nail on the head where it's that outsourcing what you can without direct cost through partners, but you've got to be diligent. Some IT guys get lazy, and then they just offload everything to that VAR.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, what do you think? And then they just buy it. What do you think? And they just buy it, and they don't do that diligence, and they don't make sure that solution aligns with the business. But it's an easy button for them.
Well, that's critical feedback for every CEO of every vendor and technology manufacturer out there in the market, right? Thousands and thousands of them, where they very, very proud of all the work they put into their go-to-market strategy, all the R&D work, all the innovation, and they find out they may be losing or winning deals not based off all that extra work, but down to that one sales rep and that personal relationship. Even after all these decades, I know it might be hard for them to hear that, but I think they should really take that back to heart and think about what that really means. It's back down to the human interaction. And if they do something strange or weird in their organization to piss off that sales rep, they could be losing huge deals out there in the field. So that's something they really should take to heart and really kind of get their arms around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got one of my good personal friends is a salesperson for a big technology vendor. I'm sure you know him, but I won't throw his name out there.
Yeah.
And over the last 4 or 5 years, he and I have become really good friends, and we come across each other at industry stuff all the time, and we'll go fishing together, we'll go hunting together, doing whatever. Yeah. And he's never tried to hard sell me. Whenever we first met, it was a sales introduction, but I said, hey, we just bought this platform. We're in a 5-year life cycle. We've already signed a 5-year contract. I don't need anything that your company has to offer. He's like, that's fine. Let's go to lunch. And because he's smart and he knows it's about building the relationship. Because I'm not always going to be at this company, and he's not always going to be with that technology vendor, right? I mean, it happens more frequently than not that you're bouncing around, and a trusted relationship goes farther than a technology sale any day of the week, in my book, at least.
And the other interesting thing you mentioned earlier about maybe the IT person who may be slacking and offloading too much. There's also the situation where the managed service provider came in and just crushed it with the overview, the demonstration, and the CFO-friendly cost. Hey, we're going to lay this out for 4 years, and we're going to do ITSM for you. We're going to do onboarding. We're going to do service desk for you. Hey, by the way, I know you don't have a CISO. We're going to roll that security stuff in there. We're going to deploy out and do your branch locations. And all of a sudden, it's looking very compelling, right? All these IT capabilities, one shop, one number. And then you do your due diligence, you're in there. And then a couple months in, you realize, I need something changed for us. Oh, sorry, that's a custom work that really can't do because our model doesn't support it. Tell me about that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst. So, I mean, I recently, not too long ago, went through a search for a new service management vendor, or not service management, service desk, managed service provider, excuse me, and so went through there, and I talked to so many people, and ended up engaging with a partner to help me conduct my search and filter out a lot of the noise and it just blew my mind how many promises are made that they just can't deliver on, or they don't deliver on. They're saying, oh, we're using the greatest technology, we're doing process automation, this, that, and the other. And then you sit down and say, okay, walk me through onboarding for one of your customers, or walk me through the onboarding process that you have in place with your other customers. What does automation mean to you? And it's like, oh, well, it's automatic. The ticket's automatically routed to this person to manually execute. It's like, to me, that's not automation, right? And so I, I generally, I mean, I'll very rarely go with the most expensive solution, but I also don't always go with the cheapest solution, right? Because it's a lot of times you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So that friendly CFO number will either A, you get poor service delivery, or B, you end up getting nickel and dimed for everything that you want to change and everything you want to build and every incremental improvement along the way. Um, and that's once again due diligence. I mean, and you got to get your legal team and with the contracts
Yes.
and all that. But once again, if you've got a good relationship with folks and you can, if everybody's just open and honest and has clear communication, then you don't run into as many of those problems. And when you do, you're able to work them out. But look at ERP integrations, right? I mean, you've
Oof,
got
yeah.
folks that they spend 4 or 5 years doing an Oracle EBS implementation or Salesforce implementation or and when you look at it, right, if they've got modules that help your business because you're a cookie cutter business and you're good to go right out of the box, that's great. But if they come to you and well, it doesn't really work like that, but we can customize it to do that, and if you spend 3 years customizing a solution, is it even that solution anymore? Because then every time you do an update or a patch, you've got to customize stuff. And are you not better in today's day and age to hire a developer that's really good with AI and just build your own integration or build your own platform? And I mean that's one of the most difficult decisions, right? Um, in all different IT solution areas. But um, sorry, I got a little.
You're good. Well, you know what you need, though. You know what you need? You need the CFO, the IT leader, and the vendor all to be on the same page and say, I got a great deal for you, Mr. CFO. It's only going to be like 100,000 because it's like crappy service. If you want not less crappy service, it's like 150, less crappy, 200,000. If you want to hit it on the mark, it'll be 5 million. And then IT guys, yeah, it's going to be crappy, not really good, a lot of service tickets. So what's the sweet spot? So you can get everybody on the page at the same time. Because what's happening is they're being sold like it's top notch, top tier, top shelf. It's like, and IT are looking like that number just doesn't represent that. It's more complicated than what that number shows.
Yeah, and that's where good experience comes in, and you've got to have trust within your organization, right? And if it's a project that I'm leading that started in IT, I won't, other than requirements gathering, I won't take a proposal to my CFO unless I'm on board with it, right? And usually what I try to do is narrow it down to 2, sometimes 3 solutions and say, hey, these are the options, these are the pros, these are the cons, these are the deltas, and this is my recommendation and why. But give them enough information to make that same decision. And most of the time, the business leaders, they don't want all the detail and all the stuff. They just want what's pertinent to them. But you do have to be willing to or and capable of delivering that information when they ask the question. But yeah, I mean, and at that point, you're kind of the gatekeeper where you're not taking a crappy solution to your CFO.
Yeah.
Now, whenever like we talked about earlier, your accounting manager goes to the conference and
Yeah.
gets this whiz bang product and they bring it in and they start scoping it out. IT doesn't know anything about it until, right at the end. And, you've just got to, speak your mind, and then it's up to to your CFO to make that decision. But in my opinion, the CFO should be doing their due diligence, and you should never only look at one product, right? I think you're doing a disservice to your business at that point.
Unless you're going to use it as a sanity check for the CFO. So I sent you a solution. Like I said, it is crappy. So why would you even send this to me, Jared? It's crappy. Well, you gave me $100,000 slot. And on the market today, that's what's going to get, a crappy solution. If I hire some interns internally or I go with these other vendors who can't really do it, that's what I can get for $100,000 crappy. So that's I sent it to you because you told me to give you a solution at that number.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, the other interesting thing you mentioned about the developer, right? So it's also the strategy of developing your solutions in-house versus hybrid versus outsourcing it. Maybe 7 years ago, people went crazy on outsourcing all the development. So it's overseas. And then they started to complain about it's not, hands-on enough for our culture and our organizational structure. And then a lot of people started bringing it back. And then some people are doing a hybrid model. So let's talk about this for code development, mobile apps, web apps, things, IoT device, AI. There's a lot of need to develop. How do we think about strategy about where do we source those developers?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges and biggest decision points that you have to make nowadays, right? And it goes back to your business's operating model and their preference for operational expense versus capital expense. Historically, I've been kind of anti-outsource for the majority of core business operations because you can outsource and you can save money, but not only are you going to get what you're paying for, but you're not going to get the internal resources that learn your business, right? Because when you outsource, say, an ITSM platform, your service desk operation, that's all they care about. It's just knock those tickets out, and they don't ever learn more about other areas of your business. And when that challenge comes up, right, they're not putting forth the extra effort to help you find a solution to that. They're, you just don't get the same level of engagement the vast majority of the time. And so that's one of the areas that I've always had a sticking point with. However, right, when you're a very fast growing company and you need to be able to scale very quickly, I mean, building a team is hard. Getting them to coalesce together is hard, and it takes time. And so there is value in being, having those partners and having those things outsourced, and they can scale that team much more rapidly because they can pull from their existing pool of resources. And I've historically, until 2-3 years ago, always been a big proponent of buy off the shelf versus custom develop, because when you custom develop things, there's a lot more maintenance, there's a lot more testing, you have security concerns, there's just on and on and on. You're now in the business of developing software where you weren't before, and then you don't have that vendor to go back to and say, hey, fix your problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But AI has changed that, right? Where now, one strong developer can use modern tools and do what was previously the work of, 8 or 10 mediocre developers using some of these tools. And so, yeah, I think you really have to strongly consider bringing that functionality in-house. There's risks involved with that of being able to, what if that person gets another job? What if they win the lottery?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you
yes.
lose the expertise. So there are considerations for sure, but you can gain so much efficiency by bringing that function in house in the right environment. So I think with the technology shifts that have occurred recently, I think we're shifting more and more towards that. I mean, and some guys will tell you that SaaS is on life support, right? Software as a service, because it is so easy to build your own simple applications now. I mean, I've got virtually zero coding experience, and I mean, I built a math tutor app for my daughter, the college algebra. And I've built several little apps, and so all of these software as a service things that you're paying subscriptions for that just handle this one function, that can go by the wayside eventually. I mean, and we're still transitioning, but so I think having strong development skills in-house, even if you don't develop everything you do in-house, is a huge value in delivering your capability and your ability to adapt to business needs. if you are a business and you want to do acquisitions, especially
Yeah.
ERP integrations, if you're acquiring a company that's at a 15-year-old ERP system, it's going to take multiple years to get all that stuff upgraded and migrated. But if you need your books consolidated rapidly, why not custom develop a connector to fill the gap to do that, and then you can work on getting them migrated in the long term in the background where the business isn't waiting. Um, so it's a mixed bag, but I would say, yeah, I feel like it's shifting more and more towards doing more in-house than it used to be.
So I see a challenge out there where some business doesn't really understand how much IT is doing due diligence, governance, making sure the actual business capability matches up with the technology. As they may have gotten a little, I guess, maybe I don't say stingy, but maybe they lost some resources who've been there for 15, 20 years because maybe they didn't want to pay market rate for this person. And so, oh, well, we'll just get like a junior or mid-level person. And then he can just go out and just do a third party. And you can end up at a point where you have all this brain drain that has the skill set plus the interpersonal skills, plus a lot of things that were keeping the business out of a lot of trouble that maybe the business didn't see. So you can end up with lower level people who just get dropped in and say, I'm just going to start doing vibe coding. I'm like, what? And next you know, this app is in a critical path and the business think, hey, we're good to go. We're moving faster. It's less friction and it's quicker. And little do they know is all the due diligence for that expertise that you lost may bite you later on. So let's talk about this. Make sure we value what we have here.
And the incredible thing to think about is for some businesses, they're okay with that, right? The cost savings to them is worth the increased risk down the road. And that, I think, in my personal development, that was one of the things that I really had to shift my mindset. Why would you do this? There's a better way to do it. Long term, it's going to be better and more cost effective. But for the business, I mean, especially if you're at a publicly traded company, right? Your fiduciary responsibility is to your shareholders, not necessarily to making your employees' life easier or even delivering a better value to the customer at a lower cost. While those are all great things to do, that's not your number one priority anymore, unfortunately, in a lot of businesses today. And so it's that's okay with some companies. I mean, I've sat across from a CEO and said, hey, these are the cybersecurity risks if we don't do this. And they say, okay, that's acceptable risk, right? If that happens, worst case scenario, this is the impact. I'm okay with that. And that's okay. That's a business decision, right? But it's our job to make sure that we call out that risk and accurately quantify it. And then, 18 months from now, whenever they're like,
yes.
why are we shut down for a week? And, it's going to cost us $2 billion to recover and blah, 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 blah. And you pull out the email and say, well, I told you this was the risk.
Why is this guy testifying in front of Congress and got all these lawyers around him? And what's so funny though? We almost need to go challenge the mission statement, right? Because the mission statement was, let's just maximize profit for the next quarter. We're supposed to be around for a long time for our customers. So it's almost, if you want to manage risk over a long period of time and make sure your business survives, it'll be in your interest to value this. I see it. There's a lot of short-termism where it's like the market loves it because we returned this value, because we saved all this money. But it's like, do you want somebody just to randomly start pasting customer information in a third-party tool, giving responses to customers, and like, whoa, how much institutional knowledge went into caring for the information you pass to a customer, or the quality you go and building a medicine or building that product or car. It's like this stuff matters over a long period of time. And if you just take this short term 2-3 quarters, it's like, man, we just didn't see that coming, Jared, man. Woof. I think it was Jared's fault. Jared, you should have told me this was risky here.
And
the junior guy, yeah.
And your CIO and your CISO are always going to be the first one to take the hit, right? Even though, they fought for the best option at the time. And unfortunately, that's I wouldn't get into a much bigger topic, but that's just one of the big challenges in the business environment today, in the business culture is, it's not about building that, 50-year long company life, that's going to last forever. It's about, hey, how can we jack up our numbers high enough so we get acquired and walk away with a buyout, right? And there's a lot of detriment to that, I believe. A few people walk away with a whole lot of money, and a lot of other people are constantly in between jobs because you have such a higher amount of M&A and whatnot. And it just creates a very challenging environment. And I've seen it happen a dozen times. You get a new CEO or a new executive, they want to come in and they want to, earn their stripes and they want to impress the board. And so they come in and they just start making huge cuts, and you lose all the momentum that you had going. Your numbers skyrocket for the next, 12, 24 months even, but long term, that's not sustainable. Your business is going to suffer, right? When you're in a market where you can take advantage of your customers because you have pricing power, right? You have the ability to really up your prices and then kind of, take advantage of that customer. That's only going to work until that market condition reverts, and then they're going to go somewhere else because they're going to remember that you did that to them. And I mean, you do have some of that's built into the market, but what in the extreme cases, yeah, I mean, you're going to burn the bridge every time. And then your long-term viability as a company just whittles away.
Yeah, and the enterprise risk management, they always worry about brand reputation. Let's protect it at all costs. So one, we survive, and two, we're very prosperous over a very long period of time. So I think that's sometimes we may need to remind people, maybe in our IT strategy is, this is the value that we're bringing. We can tell the story, we can paint the picture, and we're giving the business everything they need to do. And then I guess say for IT professionals, you kind of, you monitor your career path and, where you're working in each company and see if they align to it. Ideally is the company that you're working with have the same type of values you do. And then they're aligning with their customers, that customer promise that, hey, in 10 years, I'm going to still be here, right? I'm going to still be providing value. I know what the value we're bringing with the tech. We know what the tech is doing for the business, and then we can see what the business is doing for the customer. So I think that's kind of when I look at the future of operating models for IT, it's let's make sure people understand what we're providing, and then we just have kind of sanity checks when the business goes a little bit out there too far on the ledge and like, man, this quarter could look good. It's like, yeah, we want to make sure the next 2 years look good, and we want the repeat customers out there.
Absolutely. And you've got way too many CIOs that they don't understand the business that they're working with. They know IT, they know cybersecurity, they know their TOGAF, they know all their reference architectures, and they do a really, really fantastic job managing the IT business unit. But if you don't understand the business that you're in, you can't deliver that competitive advantage, right? And I mean, your special sauce as an organization may not have anything to do with your IT solutions, but I'm a pretty firm believer that with today's technology capabilities, if you don't have technology delivering outside value to your business, you're not trying hard enough.
Yes, yeah. I can't think of an industry alive today that can't leverage AI and ability to help decision making, speed that process up. Healthcare, getting medicines out for curable problems, things out, and trying to figure out where you should drill the next thing in the water. To how do we improve the efficiency of something on the factory floor? It's like, it's so much capability out there. You just got to have the mindset that we have the time and the space as technology people to help look out there and see where we can innovate and then, attack the two problems, right? The expenses and the competitiveness for building out more revenue. So I'm kind of excited of what's out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the people, right? I mean, people don't like change. Change is scary. And so I'm a firm believer that you have to build a lot of trust in your business units and your peers across other business units. And you have to take their feedback seriously, and you can't just kind of gung ho start pushing stuff down their throats. You really have to work with them and get some good solid wins in first before you can ask them to take a big risk on your recommendation, right? And everybody's worried that AI is going to take their job, or um, automating this process is going to reduce their power within the company because they've got fewer headcount. And I mean, AR and AP, right? I mean, you can automate like a lot of that function now. I'm not a proponent of 100% taking humans out of any business process, because you don't have the ability to critical think and make those required decisions. But you've got to get the people involved that know their line of business.
And when you're looking at that new infusion of capital, sometimes the business can actually maybe use that capital for the existing team who's been clamoring for years for extra investment. But instead, they take that capital and then bring a new team at the top who get all the glory for some fancy thing, and they jettison in a couple of years. And the people in the field like, dude, we were this close. We've been asking for help. We just needed some more encouragement, more investment, more capital, more time. And they just overlooked us. It's like we were not even there. And I think that's one of the frustrations that we have IT professionals is. It's like we have a lot of ideas. We just don't have the time or money. And then all of a sudden they say we don't have any money. And then they come back and say, well, hold on. What's this new thing with this new group of people you just hired or this outside force? Hey, you guys did have the money. Okay. Well, now we understand.
4x our annual IT budget, bring these consultants in to tell us all this stuff we've been telling y'all for the last 2 years.
Yeah, like something not matching up here. Okay, then that goes back to, okay, so IT leadership, you have to have a strategy of how do you acquire that money and that capital so it won't be steered somewhere else. But your internal team could do more and produce more for the business if it got that extra investment. So I think that's something we can all look at.
Yeah, and building that trust with those business units, right? Because I've seen that exact situation that you were talking about occur, where one of the executive team members brought in their whole team to do all this stuff, and they're like, oh, we're hiring them to do these things because they're going to add value to the business. Where the IT organization was saying, hey, we should do these things to bring value to the business, but if this executive team member brings them in under a different title, then they control their activities, and you get this kind of silo effect in the business. And if you have trust between the leadership, then that's less likely to happen, right? Some people are, they've got real strong ego and they just want to control as much as they can control. But I think if you've got those relationships in place, that's less likely to happen, or it's going to happen to a lesser extent when the groups are working together well.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to chat about?
Oh, I mean, we could go on for days, right?
Can we talk about the IT, the operating model strategy? There's just so much there. So it's always interesting to delve into some of these main areas.
And I think if you wanted to summarize all of this stuff, right, there's a lot of contingencies and a lot of variables to a lot of these different topics that we've kind of been touching on, but a lot of it comes to working well with people, communicating well, and building the relationships so that you have the political capital, you have the trust to sometimes go out on a limb, and you also have the political capital, because everything doesn't always go according to plan. Every project is not a win. As a matter of fact, I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about the statistics of IT project success over like the last 5 years, and it's dismal, and it's terrifying. And you've got to build up that capital so that when things don't go according to plan, you get a little bit of grace from the business. And I mean, experienced business leaders, they've been there. They've had their own projects that are non-technology based that didn't deliver. And so I think it's important to build those relationships.
Fantastic, man. And this has been some good knowledge here. So there's a lot IT leaders can do. There's a lot of IT professionals who want to aspire to become a CTO or CIO in the future. So I think there's a lot of options out there, and you try to make sure you projecting forward, making sure you have those human skills along with the technical hands-on. So you may one day be managing a workforce of bots in the thousands, and we're going to need your human intelligence to make sure they don't blow everything up.
Yeah. Hopefully it's after I retire.
There we go. All right, man. I really appreciate your time today, man. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate you having me on, and it's been fun.
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to close down another session of the Smart IT podcast. Until next time, take care. Thanks for joining another episode of the Smart IT podcast, where we explore what's next for IT and disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk together. If you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and leave your comments. And for more Smart IT wisdom, check out my website at williamreed.info.